Good afternoon, everybody. Let's like and share, and we'll get started in a few seconds. If you're on the social media pages, please share this out, and then we'll begin with our program. We're so excited. Have a lot to talk about today. Please like and share on all social media platforms, and then we'll get started. There's so much to talk about today in the country. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Please share on all your platforms if you are able, and we will get started. All right, friends, family, loved ones, how's it going? Hope you've been enjoying your day. Had to get up. It's the afternoon. I'm Alderman Darrell Brackeen Jr., and I'm an exploratory candidate for statewide office centered around voting rights and economic rights here in the great state of Connecticut. So it's obviously MLK Day. It's not just a day off, folks. It's meant to be a day of service and conversation and reflection. And in that, again, please share this post so that we can expand the conversation just for a moment of reflection for today. And as we know, Martin Luther King was a great man. His legacy and his service and his sacrifice and the truth telling, and I love truth telling being highlighted because we're going to be doing a lot of that in the next few minutes. Talking about the voting rights and the state of voting rights in this nation and in this state. And today, I think about that legacy and how even in Washington, the truth is there's a shadow being casted over Washington, D.C. and this nation, being that we are still fighting for voting rights. Like, how could that be in a democracy that's been around for hundreds of years, that we are basically in a standstill at our federal government level? And the sacrifice and the rhetoric that we're hearing is just not enough. We really need to see some action. And part of the reason why I'm stepping up to the plate is because of my decades of service and the work that I've done in voting rights over the last decade. I actually have receipts to prove that. Being sent around the country through the Biden-Harris campaign, working on elections and that past election in 2020 in particular. That was amazing. Glad we were able to do that, but we still need to deliver on a lot that's happening throughout our country. And today we'll get into a conversation with a few of my colleagues who have, in their own way, engaged in this process and have been great voices in the community on this topic. So let's bring them in. All right. There will be others that'll join us throughout this process, but just want to welcome some of our greatest team members on Team Brackeen for CT. First of all, our esteemed treasurer, finance director of the Brackeen for CT campaign, Ms. Rhonda Caldwell. How are you? How's it going?
I'm doing great on this illustrious morning or afternoon, Martin Luther King Observance Day. Thank you for having me today. I'm happy that we're talking about this. This is very important. Connecticut has the most restrictive voting laws in the country. The things that folks in Georgia and the Carolinas and in the South already have had for years, which is my favorite, the souls to the polls on Sunday. We don't have any of that. We're still trying to get there. Yet there are voices in Connecticut that will say that we're fine. But I submit we're not fine. And when you have 530,000 registered voters that do not come to the polls, that didn't come to the polls in 2020, which honestly I think was the election of my lifetime. And my lifetime's been a long time. So I think that, there is so much work to do in Connecticut, and we need real viable leadership in Hartford, in our positions of authority around voting, and making sure that we have practices and procedures and policy in place that open the doors for folks who work, who have, disabled parents or disabled children and can't get there for some reason. So many people there's so many barriers to getting to the polls in Connecticut. And we just have to continue to keep talking about it and shed light on it.
Great. I'm really excited to dive right in with you. And then also we have with us from the town of Greenwich, who has served on the RTM there and is a great organizer in his own right, and has recently joined Team Rakeen, Hale McSherry. How's it going?
Hey, Daryl, thank you so much. I'm super excited to be here with you guys. And yeah, I've been working as an organizer and activist in Connecticut for a while, especially down in Greenwich. And I think when we're in a state like Connecticut, people get lulled into a false sense of security and think, oh, those problems, these lines, these crazy laws that are coming out, those are problems for other states like down south or something like that. And we don't have any of those problems here. But voting rights and access to the vote is a huge issue. It's been a huge issue for centuries, and it's going to continue to be a huge issue unless we get some movement in the right direction. So I'm excited to talk with you guys and see how we can keep pushing in the right direction, especially heading into the new year.
Absolutely. I really, actually, we can kind of start right there. So in terms of what we are doing in terms of this campaign and why we're exploring and really wanting to get the ideas concerning this topic out there is, look, the truth is there is quite a few individuals in our state that people would say it's voter apathy, but I actually think it's called voter exhaustion. I'm convinced that voters are exhausted of not being heard, having things being delivered for in their communities. And, I feel like the age of politics is over. And I just really, truly believe that the people will rise to the occasion when they see their government is truly representative of the people. And, I'd be remiss in not just saying, like, hey, I'm a kid born and raised in the city of New Haven, went through the public school system, went on to Fairfield University, and I actually studied. I actually have, I always like to tell people I have the student loans. Those are the receipts to prove that I've studied and understand government. I literally have the degrees, double majored in, not only was I interested in the science of government, I understood that I needed to know my history. So yes, qualified to be in this space here. Having worked in the actual polls, like the actual polling place on polling days, having been literally serving in every role in a poll. So I actually understand how an elections process works in collaboration with working with city town clerks around the state, voter registrars around the state, and actually going in and doing problem solving and being called in to do that work. And that work being recognized by, as I mentioned earlier, the Biden-Harris campaign, and being sent across the nation. Now, before I keep rambling about myself, I'm going to stop to do a little praising of, I call her a queen representative, Representative Robin Porter. How's it going?
Hey, had to find my unmute button. Good afternoon and happy MLK Jr. Day. All is well, all is well. You know, there's plenty of work to be done, but I'm just honored to be with you all today for the time that I can spare. So I'm going to be jumping off probably sooner than you end, but I did want to come on and pay homage to the Honorable, right? Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, and to also support you in your efforts around what's going on in the world right now with voting rights. So thank you for the invitation, Alderman Brackeen.
Thank you. Thank you. And essentially, what we're talking about is having the right people in the seat for this moment. And I would be remiss if I didn't highlight probably one of the most powerful campaign slogans I've ever heard in my life was Porter for the People. And like, that was legit. Like, literally, your work has been an example and a highlight of what a people-powered campaign looks like. And to have your endorsement and support in this race, folks, we are talking about the people. This campaign is literally about the people, and
Amen.
we proved that by having you here.
So. Amen. And I owe that slogan to my mother, Marilyn Moore. She came up with that. One day I walked in the door and she was here visiting, and she looked at me and she said, "Oh, there she is, Porter for the People." And it's stuck ever since. So I do agree. This is the, you know, it's all about the people. You know, it's a passion for people, love for community, and a desire to see our communities not just, you know, surviving, but thriving, right?
Yes. So actually, I have a question for you. What is your opinion or theory around why we haven't seen this voter rights legislation nationally get passed? Like, what is the issue? So I'll let you begin as the legislator here, and then everyone else can jump in on that question on what our theories are and even possible solutions to trying to address that issue.
Well, I think from what I see, you know, locally, as well as conversations with other representatives around the United States, we know that money plays a big role in politics. And we know that, you know, everyone has self-interest, and some people are definitely more interested in making sure that a certain demographic doesn't have access to the ballot. This is nothing new. This has been going on from centuries, from the inception of voting. We've had to fight to get to the ballot box. And I think that it's really appalling, you know, that in 2022, we are still having to have this conversation. You know, we've gone from being 3/5 a compromise, and I don't know if we've even gone from that, right? Like, because you hear a lot of talk about we have to compromise, we have to compromise. I think what I find interesting about that is when we're being asked to compromise and who is being asked to compromise. And we've always been in a position to be made the sacrificial lambs in any and every equation. So I'm thrilled, you know, that you are running for this office. I'm thrilled that you have a full understanding of, you know, the scope of the measures that need to be and should be taken in order to correct this. And it's going to take courage, you know, and that's the other thing I admire about you, your ability to speak truth to power, and actually to speak power to power, because I want people to understand that we have the power, the people power, and that there are more people that want to do right in this world than there are folks that want to suppress our votes. And we need to trust our power. And that comes from my good friend, Rhonda Caldwell. And I'm going to continue to use that. She says it all the time, trust your power. You know, and that's what we have to do. We not only do we have to trust our power, we have to believe in that power and understand that we have the power to make the changes that are needed and necessary to level the playing field and bring equity across the board for all of America's citizens.
Can I jump into? I just want to also say that, you know, one thing about Darrell Brackeen Jr. that I know I can say with fierce confidence is that he is one of the candidates that are exploring the statewide office that has actually experienced voter suppression. As a Black man living in Connecticut, you know, a husband, a father, he's already had to make numerous sacrifices to try to get to the polls before they close at 8 o'clock. between 6 a.m. and 8 o'clock, having to juggle a family, having to juggle a job, having to juggle all these responsibilities, to maneuver through traffic to try to get through, these things that are really seemingly barriers. I have video from 2020's election over at Newhallville. We're at the Keith Center, and it was people standing in line in the cold. It was like sprinkling rain. And I walked up to people and I said, how about this voter suppression in Connecticut? Isn't this something? They're like, what do you mean? There's no voter suppression. I'm like, bro, you're standing in a cold line in the middle of November, in the middle of a pandemic, waiting to get into a locked building in the middle of a workday. Like, how many boxes do we need to check for voter suppression? There's a ton of boxes. And the average working class, Black or brown or indigenous person in Connecticut is affected by it because we all have jobs. We're not independently wealthy. So it's like, all of us have to, make a sacrifice to get in there. And like you said, we're all exhausted. We've been doing this for years and we're still not being heard. I've been saying for years, why can't I just mail my thing in? Can you just send it to me? And I'll fill it out like I did during the pandemic. And I just mail it in. Oh, no, there's too much fraud or whatever. It's just annoying at this point. And people are tired of it. I agree with you. That, 500,000 registered voters in Connecticut don't go to the polls. And that should be making national and news and statewide news every week. That it's a huge travesty for our democracy that 500,000 state citizens in our state don't vote. But no one seems to be, everybody's okay. They're saying 186,000 new people came to the polls in 2020, and that was record breaking. Not so. Not so. So we have a lot of work to do, Daryl. You have a lot of work to do.
And I'm up to the task. I mean, look, I think every job that I've had in my adult life, it's been literally seeking and working with the people and their needs. And that's another thing I want to highlight today. Voting rights is, we can't talk about that without addressing economic rights. And that's the other piece of this puzzle that many don't seem to understand, or maybe some do understand and they just they don't care. And that, that's another conversation. Because even in my experience of running this race, I told people I was going to be rather transparent about even my experiences, and noticing that my father died maybe 2 months now. It doesn't seems like yesterday. And I come back from trying to recoup and make the decisions I need to make. And I come back to the news that the insiders in the party has counted this campaign out. And it's like, wait a minute. Wait, I can't even grieve. I can't take a moment to grieve for a second. And it just shows you that sometimes the insider track they have a motive and a track that they want to go on, and it might not be the one that we're talking about today. So my question is, how do we, as a community, really demonstrate that our voices have yet to be heard? Like, what does it take to ensure that the insiders don't decide what the people need and what the people want?
The insiders aren't the voters. See, that's the difference. The voters decide, and I think in Connecticut, everybody has gotten real comfortable with the political insiders moving the needle constantly. And, that's why this is like, I love your form here that says that to join the people powered movement. The only way you're going to really make this happen is that we have to get the people to decide. The insiders will always make their decisions. And of course, the insiders have money, they've got influence, they've got all the things that has always been making them successful. But we have the people. That's the difference. The difference is we have the people. We have the pulse of the people in the community. And we need the people, like you said, to trust what we're telling them and believe us to get out to the polls. And as long as you have people power, there's no amount of money and insiders, I think, that could really, really move a needle on this one.
I think that, and this is just to piggyback off of what Rhonda is saying, I'm listening to you, and the thing that I thought about when it comes to people power, was Congresswoman AOC out of the Bronx. Like the way she was able to hit that ground, hit the brick running, and I mean knock on every single door. I mean, like the way she was able to mobilize that community and galvanize that community to turn out and win against an incumbent who had been seated for decades. If that doesn't speak to us as a people, the power that we have, then what will? And I mean, we have to take that power and use it on every platform. Voting, criminal justice, economic justice. Because you said it, Alderman Brad King. If we conquer that economic injustice that we are consistently under and how we are financially oppressed, all of this other stuff will level itself out. We just need to have economic justice, economic empowerment. That is how we level the playing field straight across the board. But I just wanted to, Rhonda was talking and I thought about AOC and I said, now that's a prime example of what people power looks like. And when we come together as a people and a community, one nation under God, right? For real. Black, brown, Latinos, Asians, Italians, Irish, everybody. When we come together, there's no stopping us because at the end of the day, there's one race and it's the human race. And when we learn that and learn how to work as a team, you know what I say? Teamwork makes the dream work.
I couldn't agree more, Representative Porter. And when we think about what the insiders or what the people that have been in the establishment for so long are thinking, tell me if you agree with this. I feel like the prevailing wisdom for the last 40, 45 years has been whenever the government does anything, it's too much. What did Ronald Reagan say? The scariest words in the English language are, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help." So I feel like that's been the prevailing wisdom of people who have been in these positions for so long, and they've been operating the system in a way that is seeking to maintain their own power and their own place in this system. So I really feel like, I am so inspired by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in New York and by all of these people who have really taken people power and used it in such a effective way. But it scares me because 2022 isn't even 2018 and it's not 2016. Time is changing. These laws have passed in these other states over the past couple of years. I'm scared for what could happen in Connecticut. So I'm glad that we're all on the same page here because I feel like this is going to be a really important year, and it sometimes feels like it's one of our last chances.
And like trying to bring this all together and thinking about the words of Martin Luther King, it was a quote that I'm probably going to mess up, but it's okay. and he basically brought up the premise of, this was back in the 1960s. He posed a question. What are we going to do as a society, an American society, when we have not truly addressed the economic problems in this country? There were 40 million people in poverty back in the 1960s. If we looked at statistics today, we are not too far from where it was back then. So my question and even premise here is, when do we, those that are in this political space organizing for justice and truth, actually get to the meat of the problem? Over 40 million people are still in poverty, and that was the case when Dr. Martin Luther King gave that quote. How could that be? What do we need to do in order to really begin to tackle the real issues in our community? And now I'm singing to the choir for a reason. Obviously, everybody on this screen has a breadth of work that literally shows how you're doing that. But I want for our audience to understand like what that looks like and the work that it takes to get those types of things done.
I think it starts with education. People really need to be educated on the issues. And when we talk about, fighting voter suppression, people need to have a full understanding of what voting rights are and what it looks like when those rights are being suppressed. And I think one of the ways is, knowing what we have to fight against, like fighting cuts to voting access. fighting voter ID requirements and all the things that they're coming up to curtail people and discourage people from coming to the polls. There have even been instances where, we know they will bring police to the polls in certain communities. And we know in certain communities it's friendly, and in other communities it's not so friendly, right? There's relations that need to be built and strengthened in communities. So I think we have to look at what the problems are and how we solve it in order to move forward. Because what we need is for people to understand what political power is, how their vote is their voice, and their voice is that power, and that is one step or one ring on the ladder, right? On our way up. There's so many other things that have to go with that. You can't just vote and think because you cast your ballot, you're done. You have to make sure that the people that are in office are actually doing the things that are conducive to your community, to bring, progress to the community, to bring prosperity to the community, to bring public safety to the community, to bring a vibrant economy where small businesses and, community, homeowners, or everyone, education, all of these things can be standard and not substandard. Because, in the community that I represent, there's a lot of substandard everything that goes on here. And it's not an achievement gap. It's a lack of opportunity and resource gap. So when they start to understand how all of this plays together, and how it all starts with that vote and who you put in office, who's up there and who's down here, the alders and the committees that you sit on, your state rep and senators, the committees that they sit on. I mean, we're talking appropriations, banking, commerce, higher ed, education, judiciary, labor. There's not one aspect of what we do in government that doesn't directly touch the lives of the individuals that need to be at the ballot box. So I would say, we start with education, civics 101, poly 101. They took it out of schools for a reason, because they didn't want us educated on these matters. It is up to us as a community to take back that power and then use the power that we have to empower our people. And I think the first point of entry is education.
And actually, to that point, that you couldn't have said that better. Here's a vow that I intend to do, because my background is in education. I'm a social studies teacher by trade. So one of the things I intend to bring to the role that I'm seeking is a collaboration with the Department of Education to develop a comprehensive K through 12 period to ensure that civics is taught. I believe the Secretary of State role should be a chief civics educator. That's one thing I believe. And I also believe that those that are in the other constitutional roles statewide should also be a part of that collaborating conversation as well, because there's different aspects to each one of those offices. Governor, what does the governor do? What does the lieutenant governor do? What does the state treasurer do? What does the comptroller do? These are all things that need to be incorporated into our civics education, K through 12. And I've taught at every level, so I clearly see the gap in that, and also applying that. So I was an activist teacher. While in the classroom, I ran for office. I've been in office over a decade now. So I've literally been on both sides and been an example. And I think we need more experiences for young people, and which is also why I support changing the voting age to age 16 to incorporate that curriculum in a comprehensive way, so that by the time they're 16 years old, they can have an experience going to Washington, D.C. as I did. I participated in a close-up program where I was able to go immerse myself in Washington, D.C. for like 3 weeks. I came back home on fire. I started the first voter registration drive at Hillhouse High School, school's history, and it still goes on today, in honor of my late teacher, Jack Polishin, who was a great civics social studies teacher there at Hillhouse. That's an example that can be replicated statewide, but only if we have someone who has that direct experience in the seat. So Rhonda, I know you had something to say there.
Well, I come up from parents who told us the only thing Black folks really had was their education. And I come from a family that were in the 1950s and 60s. You had teachers or preachers. All of our family were teachers. And not that preachers don't teach you too, but I'm just saying, these were things that they were told us as we were coming up as young kids in the 1970s, that, you had no other choice. Like there wasn't a plan B. You have to have an education. You have to go on and get an advanced education. My mother and all her sisters at that time in the 1960s had master's degrees. And I had several aunts in the early 1970s are working on their PhDs and finished them. So, I mean, education has really been the cornerstone of power in the Black and Brown community for as far back as we can remember. That's been suppressing education was the beginning of it. Not preventing people from understanding how to read a map, how to get north, how to get free. I keep watching that. Like every time I watch a Harriet movie, I got to watch it again because it's like the first thing the guy said as soon as she got over there and actually made it to get across the river. It's like, you don't even know how to read, do you? How did you make it this far? I mean, these are the things that, and if you go and you see systemically, these things are still happening in Black and Brown communities in public education. That's why Hampton Action Now, one of our pillars is equitable education, equitable education to Black, Brown, and Indigenous kids throughout the state of Connecticut. And everybody's like, oh, but everybody gets the same public education. I disagree. I absolutely disagree. Within the same public school systems, you can have one school being taught something totally different than another school across town. And see, these are the things that we all have to highlight. Education starts young. We need to get young children. And I understand everybody's all concerned about, how, these new things that kids are being learning. But this is American history. The American history, the raw version, all of it, the good and the bad. And kids have to understand and they have to learn it. And they have to take it and understand the perspective of how we got here. Communities of color didn't get here by accident. We didn't get here. I was watching on DSA had a really great video last night about, redlining. Please, that was all created by the federal government in the 1940s. These white communities are not generically white. They didn't happen this way. They were created this way, and they're sustaining even today. So, I mean, we have to educate. The more people know about how our circumstances have been created and designed for us, especially around voting, because who you have in power, who you put in power, and if you just lay down and let whoever be in power, that means you don't have a voice. You have to get to the polls. And after the polls are closed, you got to demand those people you put in power. They must do what you say. They must do what you say. You put them there. And it's just as easy as you put them there, you could take them right on. Whoop, we could pluck you right back out and put somebody else in. But you can't do that unless you trust your power. If you don't trust your power, you don't even acknowledge and know the power you have, then we continue to get the same things, over and over again. So education is the cornerstone of this. Just not only just, a book, education, but we also need like street education to understand how this game works. From the DTCs, the town committees, how people arrive on row A of these ballots, they don't magically appear, and the politics around even how that works is vitally important. So there's so much education that has to happen. And my goal is to get them right out of high school or in high school and say, let me show you how this works. This is how you get power. This is how you decide who this person is in this position, in this commission. The chief of police, the chief of the president of the town council here in Hampton, the mayor, these, the chief of the fire department. How did these people get to these jobs? And how do you hold them accountable? All in education. So I agree. That is the cornerstone of the power.
Rhonda, you bring up the horrible hysteria that some more right-wing figures in the United States are trying to bring up about like critical race theory, as they call it, as a buzzword. And it's just about teaching history and about teaching the history of American racism and systemic racism. And, to bring it back to the man of the hour, if you ask a Republican lawmaker or a Republican elected official, you would think that Martin Luther King only ever said one thing, and that was, we must judge people based on the content of the character, not the color of their skin, because that's the only quote you'll ever hear from them. And it's always about, we can't ever discuss these things. We can't ever discuss the way that the community that you were born into and the system that you were born into affect the way that your life is going to go for the rest of your life. And they turn it into this issue, this buzzword issue, to say that teachers, these insidious teachers, are teaching their children lies or scary things to scare them about the United States. And they're using it now. I think in Virginia, he's trying to pass or trying to put an executive order in, and they're taking books out of libraries just because they're written by Black authors about America. And so it's scary if we don't have the people pushing back on these efforts, including in our own state here. Then we're going to be facing this horrible onslaught of censorship and just like reevaluation in a way that's countering the progress that we've been trying to make here. Because I feel like they're very scared. But Daryl, I have a question for you. When it comes to economic rights, and especially in Connecticut, we had an amazing thing happen over the last year or two with COVID. The government, especially on the federal level, was finally forced to do something. Something had to be done because so many people were going to fall into poverty if something wasn't done. And I believe it was in 2020, we actually saw the poverty level lower because of the pandemic unemployment assistance, the child tax credit, the earned income tax credit, things that congressional Democrats and Democrats in power in Washington were able to actually get through, which was amazing. But it seems like it's not going to last if we don't keep the pressure up. So as Secretary of State, or on a statewide level, is there anything that you're inspired by, or that you feel energized by, that you've seen happen, especially over the past couple of years, that you think might be able to apply to start moving things in a better direction here in Connecticut?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, here's another receipt for folks. I actually serve as the president of the Urban League, Young Professionals of Southern Connecticut. And if you know the historic civil rights organization, the Urban League, economic justice is literally the life's work of that organization. So I have been and will continue to see to that while all of those benefits that you've mentioned is one piece of the puzzle, and shame on Congress for not renewing it, by the way, just putting that out there. They need to address that, and address that quickly, in terms of the child tax credit in particular. But there's the other piece to this. Look, in this modern society, I strongly believe that the one stream of income, that's no longer a possibility. I actually strongly believe there needs to be 7 streams. But while we're, if you're talking about a next step in terms of addressing the economics here, it's small business. So I actually vow, in terms of one of the ideas I'd like to bring to the table, is that the actual office that I seek become mobile. There will be a mobile force sent to, in particular, our urban centers and those in the rural areas as well, to provide business services. And there will be educators on deck to explain, how do you start a small business? I believe everyone needs a small business. Everyone has a gift, a talent, a thought. And honestly, the tax system is set up in a way that it's kind of, businesses are people, right? And the Supreme Court hasn't necessarily addressed that, even in the dark money and the campaign giving. But LLCs, there's an tax advantages there. And I think the people, the everyday working people, need to be aware of that. Like the skill of thinking about the church mother of the church that I went to, who made the best banana pudding in the world, totally should have sold it, but she kept giving her talent for free. Like we could have educated her in terms of, hey, look, set up this LLC. You need to go to market. Let's give her a business advisor. And the second layer to the mobile small business plan is also to collaborate with the chambers of commerce, right? And while the mobile transport office is present, the Chamber of Commerce is also present, because there's a lot of resources there that can be brought to bear in terms of the training. The access to networks, because we know the bottom line is networks is also a form of power. And yes, we do have our own, but there's also a way to network effectively. How do you leverage those networks. So I'm actually not even talking about that. I've literally done that work through the Urban League and as an executive of multiple nonprofit organizations over the years. I strongly believe that we have to bring the information. Here we go, back to education again. We have to bring the information to the people and in an accessible way. Last thing, here in the state of Connecticut, we are notorious for having the worst set up websites for folks to access these types of information, the links and the businesses. I was just talking to some folks and some constituents the other day about how do we make access on these websites more clear. There are old links that are dead links, and it's like, how do we address that, right? um I know that as a matter of fact, I know an individual who was trying to start a new business, realized they had the wrong licensing paperwork and that apparently they started a new website in some other department. We have to clean up and really truly make this accessible. If this is about the people, we need to make sure that it's presented in an accessible way. Lastly, I strongly believe that transparency means you actually have to be present and hear the feedback of the people, right? So transparency to me looks like a monthly town hall meeting when being in the office, whatever I decide to declare, whatever that office is, being there and having a town hall meeting and hearing the good and the bad, and also having individuals there to troubleshoot the issues that folks are facing economically when they start these new businesses and get into those spaces. But I in order to get there, and this is a good pivot point. It takes money to run this type of campaign. We could be here on social media 24/7, continuing to inspire and to bring on dynamic individuals like each and every one of you. But the truth is, and the fact of the matter is, in order for me to get to that next level and advance towards running for this office, I am in need of folks to actually donate. Because I'm running a clean elections campaign, I intend to apply for the Clean Elections Grant, in which I am swearing off all dark money and that type of sort. And any individual that's going to donate, you donate a maximum of $250. So I'm just going to put that out there. I don't think all of the campaigns out here are running squarely on trying to actually run a clean campaign. We have made the commitment of donating a maximum amount of $250 and ensure that we have more people giving small dollar donations than trying to pad down reports around the reporting period that looks like, oh, they've got a machine behind them, right?
Exactly.
So
it's a real people-powered campaign.
That's right. Right. And the way that you can do that even on today is going to the website brackeen4ct.com, and you'll be able to donate there. Today is actually the official launch day of our full-fledged website. There's a lot of great material that's there that actually I'm going to attempt to share right now. So here we go.
Alderman, can I ask you one more question?
Sure.
So, it's January. Last week or the week before, there was a lot of discussion because it was the anniversary of the riots and insurrection at the Capitol on January 6th, which, I think, especially people who are working for a cause like ours, we look at something like that and think of it as nothing less than a stain on our democracy, at least, and surely a threat of what could come in the future. So looking forward, especially in Connecticut, and especially in the arena of voting rights and maintaining that democracy, what's on your mind, and what's on the horizon that you would want to look out for? Because I think any number of things could be coming our way following an event like that.
Yes, and just really devastated, honestly, and just reliving that moment and thinking about the families and the loss there. I believe we need to raise the idea concerning cybersecurity as being a strong part of what advancing the statewide office looks like. And I believe the next individual to occupy this open seat needs to have a real strong understanding of how technology, and social media in particular, really led to those events. Actually, that's how they primarily organized. Replaying, the marching orders from the disgraced president, and assuming that messages were being sent through him to them to cause such an insurrection. And then there was an attempt to try to focus on state capitals, which was debunked. The state of Connecticut actually did a great job of ensuring that our state capital and local municipalities were protected and protected well. So there are some things that I know that go well here in the state of Connecticut, but I also believe that we do need to advance our thinking around technology and our understanding around social media and how that influences our elections process and honestly how our democracy will continue to thrive and survive. So with that, I'm now going to share the website. Happy website day. And if you want to continue to hear these types of conversations, which we will continue to have, or if you'd like to have us in your local community, of which I will come to if I haven't already, please go to brackeen4ct.com or brackeenct.org and join the movement. You can learn a little more about me and my life there. And the work that I've done. Also included in there is the platform that I've publicly already put on. So also, we have endorsements. Actually, these are just a small few of the endorsements. We couldn't fit them all on one page. But we actually do have the support of many strong leaders across the state who signed on from day one. There was no question of whether or not this was the right time for this movement. And if you're in with us, please join the mailing list. Follow the hashtag Team Brackeen or hashtag Brackeen4CT. If you're ready to volunteer, we actually have a phone banking event coming up on the 28th. And you can, again, get more information by signing up here. And most importantly, at this point in time, are those donations. Look, you can give as little as $5 right now, and you can give as most as $250. We need all the people and the voices of the people. That doesn't also mean like speaking. The voices of the people show up in these donations as well. This says a lot. This shows that we do have an expansive network across this state of individuals who want to see a progressive, people-powered campaign on this ticket in 2022. So, this is great. There's a lot going on today, and you'll probably see me on other platforms immediately following this one. I just have to shout out Hale. Thank you so much for joining us and being a part of leading this huge effort. This is a yeoman's work, but we're going to get this done, and we're not going anywhere. We're going to make this happen. Also, shout out again to Representative Robin Porter, early supporter, and just really, it is really just, I'm just grateful that she has decided to jump on board and be a part of this movement. And of course, none of this can happen without my right hand, Rhonda Caldwell, the campaign treasurer and finance director. Without her, none of this truly is possible. So again, please go to brackeen4ct.org and also share this video. This will be available for folks to inspect, afterwards. again, sign up, start to volunteer. We're doing the groundwork. So yes, donate, but also give your time. This will mean a lot to us. With that, thank you very much and have a wonderful afternoon. See you later,
Thanks,
guys.
Daryl. See you later.